or the other person's property, you're always chayiv. Says the Gemara, Minoheni Mili, how does the Mishnah know you're always chayiv? Omar Chizkiya said Chizkiya. V'chein so too Tana Dvei Chizkiya. His yeshiva said as well. You wonder what's the chiddush of that. If Chizkiya said it, probably his yeshiva said it too. Anyhow, Omar Krotz, a pasuk in this week's parasha, Petza Tachas Patza, a wound for a wound. Those are extra words. L'chayvoy, to obligate you, al hashoyge kamezid, if it's mistaken, like it's deliberate, val ha'oinus krotz, and even an accident, as if it was purposeful. So that's the source of the din. So again, if somebody damages somebody purposefully, he's chayiv in all five things. That's whether you damage someone or their property. But if it comes from your body, you're chayiv in all five payments. If it was negligence, you're chayiv on four. Everything but embarrassment. If there was no negligence, it was mamash a shoygig or an oinus mamash an accident, you're chayiv on one. Nezek. But this is a special din when the damage comes from your body. If your property damages and there's no negligence, you're patur. Okay? Look at number 2 for a minute. Now you'll see where we're going with all this. Was? So that's with Rabbi Yehuda that needs for a tam, a bigger shmir than he needs for a muad. Right. Number 2. Number 2 is also Gemara and Baba Kama. Pretty much the same place as number 1. A statement of Rambam. Hopefully this will give some more clarity. Nofal miroish hagag. If somebody ascended a roof, well, he's going on the roof for whatever reason, a barbecue on the roof, and then he fell. Nebuch. Beruach she'einu mitzuya. There was an unexpected gust of wind came and threw him off the roof. And on his way down, Baruch Hashem, the guy's alive, but vihizik, he landed on someone's car, smashes the car. It doesn't matter if you damage somebody's person or their property, since the damage comes from your person, from your body, so then the following rules apply. Vihizik ubiyish, if you damaged, right, and you embarrassed. So let's say you landed on somebody else, and you caused him some grievous bodily harm to the point that he's going to be embarrassed for the next 6 months as he walks around. You're chayiv ala nezik, you're only chayiv on damage. Why? Because this is a case where there's no negligence. It was an unexpected gust of wind. You were up on the roof, there's a barbecue, the wind is going 10 miles an hour. All of a sudden, a 50-mile-an-hour wind came and toppled you off. So because it's completely unexpected, it's not a pshia, there's no negligence, and therefore you're only chayiv on damage, like we stated. Upatur b'dalad dvarim, you patur on the other 4 things. If it's beruach mitzuya, let's say, there's a 20-mile wind going on outside, and that's just the regular wind, and you were mama standing on the edge, and that regular wind that you should have expected knocked you off. Now you're negligent. Vihizik would be if you land on somebody else, you damage, you embarrass them. So now, since you're negligent, you're chayiv b'dalad dvarim. Now you're chayiv not just in damage, but also doctor's bills, ripui, and sheves. No, so not boishas. Boishas not yet. Upater ala boishas, you're pater on embarrassment because it wasn't purposeful. Although you were negligent, it wasn't deliberate. But ve'im nishapich, if while you were on your way down, you realized that if you turn and you land on your friend, you'll save yourself, then you're chayiv afal boishas, you're chayiv on embarrassment too. Because at that point it's deliberate. The falling wasn't deliberate, but while you were tumbling, the fact that you aimed for your friend, although it was to save yourself, but that's still called deliberate. The Tanya, we know in the Braysim, this is a story in Pashas Kiseitse, that there were 2 husbands fighting, and of course the wife gets involved, and she reaches out for the private parts of her husband's attacker, and she gives a good kvetch over there. The Shilcha Yod, the Pasuk says she sends out her hand, and then it says V'chzika, she grabs on, fine. So says the Brisa, if it says she sends out her hand, do I not know shechzika that she grabs? Why does the pasuk in Kisei have to add that v'chzika that she grabbed? To teach you that when would that woman or anyone be chayiv on embarrassment if the act was deliberate? Kivan sheniskavan lahazik, if you intended to damage, Although you didn't have intention to embarrass. Meaning like this, he's repeating what we said before, that there's really three categories. If somebody intended to damage their friend, they're chayiv on all five. Finished. Boishas too, even though you didn't intend to embarrass. But the fact that you intended to damage is enough to be chayiv on embarrassment. What if the damage was not purposeful, but it was negligence? Then boishas is off. But the other four are on. You're chayiv for pain, and you're chayiv for doctor bills and compensation and for damage. What if there's no negligence either? It's mamish, you fell off the roof and it was an unexpected wind, then you're only chayiv on nezek. Just damage. These are the three categories. And that third category is a chiddush only by Adam when you damage through your person. If your money would damage, you're only chayiv if there's an element of negligence. But by a person, you're chayiv even if it's an oinus. Like look at number 1, that was a statement of Chizkiah. You're chayiv on an oinus as well. And this is what the famous statement of the Mishnah, Adam Muad la'olam. A person's always obligated. Okay. So at this point, we come to a whopping machloikus between the Rishonim. By the purpose over here, we're going to try and answer a very difficult Rambam. We're going to try and figure out the Rambam's position on this matter. By the way, these shilas come up all the time. There was a big shilah in Eretz Yisrael a number of years ago that the Dayanim were discussing, that there was a woman who calls a taxi. She's expecting and she's going into labor already. She calls a taxi. They're half hour away from the hospital. After Weg on the way, boom, the baby comes out in the back seat. Everyone's okay, but the taxi's a mess. You know, it took the taxi driver 2 weeks to clean the taxi and everything. So he lost compensation for 2 weeks. And what's more than that, it cost him lots of money to fix the taxi. And the shaila is the woman chayiv for damage? So for compensation, the fact that he lost 2 weeks of work, usually sheves compensation is only if you damage somebody's body, person to person. If you damage somebody's property, even if it was damaged by your person, there's only nezek bulvad. But either way, the nezek here, let's say, was hundreds and hundreds of dollars for him to clean the taxi, to get it. There was blood everywhere, you know. Let's say it was $1,000 or more to clean the taxi. So is the woman chayiv? The woman tying is, this is from God. It's an act of God. But the Adam Muad la'olam. So let's learn a little bit, and then we'll come back to this question. Okay? I have to tell you a few things that aren't on the sheet. And that is, there's a major, major debate between the Tosfos and the Ramban. And the debate still is ongoing today. So all of us have the right to get involved as well. The Ramban. We'll get to the Rambam's opinion is unclear. It's enigmatic, ambiguous. We'll see momentarily. But the Ramban and Tosfos' opinions are very clear. And that is the following. Tosfos maintains, and he writes this not in one place, not in two, in 5 different places he writes it. In many of these places, they're long Tosfos, and he spells out his opinion very clearly. Says Tosfos, you are not always chayiv. It's not a blanket statement that you're always chayiv if you damage somebody or their property through your person. We don't always say Adam Muad la'olam. In number 1, it says, Chizkiah says, you're even chayiv for an oinus. It's relative, a small oinus. But if it's an oinus gomur, if it's a complete oinus, you would be potter. That's Tosfos' opinion. Within Tosfos itself, there are 2 opinions. There's the main opinion of Tosfos, and then there's the Rivah. Rabbi Yitzchok ben Asher, who was a student of Rashi, and he opened up the first yeshiva of the Baalei Tosfos in Germany. And he was a very, very important Rishon. After he passed away, many of his students left Germany and went to France to learn by Rabbeinu Tam. But the Rivah's yeshiva was one of the first yeshivas of the Baalei Tosfos. The Rivah, very, very important person in the world, in the olam of Tosfos. And there's a debate between him and the other Chachmei Tosfos before we even get to the Ramban. So we're going to have 3 opinions: Tosfos, the Rivah, and the Ramban. And the opinions are the following. Just one moment of background, just to get everything clear. This week's parsha, we also speak about Shomrim, a watchman, you know? You give your clothes to a dry cleaner. The dry cleaners, they're shomrim over the item, or anytime you ask someone to watch something. There are 3 types of shomrim. One shomer doesn't get paid for his services, doing you a favor. So he's only chayiv if he's negligent. And we learn out from this week's parsha, called dvar pesha, only for pshia, for negligence. If something happened beyond his control, beyond negligence, he swears to that effect, and his potter, he can go home. Then you have a shomer socher, someone who watches but gets paid. He gets paid to watch. So then his responsibility is a little higher. He's chayiv even if the item was lost, aveda if it's lost, or genev if it was stolen. But if it's an oinus beyond that, for example, he's watching an animal of mine and the animal dies, he's not responsible for that. What was he supposed to do? A shomer socher is potter for an oinus, or if armed robbers, listed Masuin armed robbers came with a gun, they said, give us your livestock or we'll kill you. So then his potter, for the loss of the animal. A shomer socher is chayiv if it's lost or stolen, not anything beyond that. A borrower is chayiv for anything. A shoyel is chayiv, a borrower is chayiv even if the animal died. Even if the animal, you borrow someone's animal for a month, and on day 20 the animal stam died and had nothing to do with you, you're still chayiv. Now the reason why you're chayiv, l'chayra, why taka, the Eibishter always paters an oinus rachmana patra, the Eibishter always lets an oinus off the hook. So the explanation in the Mefarshim is, when you borrow an item, you take upon a responsibility at that moment that I'm going to give back what I took. At the moment you take it, you become responsible to make sure that what you took gets back there. A lightning bolt came and struck it. Okay, no one's holding you responsible for the lightning bolt. You're responsible for the fact that when you took it, you took upon yourself to restore the item when the time comes. It happens to be a borrower is potter from one thing. And that is, if a borrower borrows an animal, and while he's using the animal dies, Mesa machmas malach, if it dies while the shoyel, the borrower, was using it, is potter. And the simple explanation is the borrower says, listen, I asked for an animal to work for a month. If it died on day 20, it means this animal wasn't capable of that. So it's a mekach tois. And I never took responsibility for an animal which couldn't live up to what I borrowed it for. And that's why he's off the hook over there. Either way, once you know these categories of the shomrim, let's come back to our discussion of Adam Hamazik, a person that damages, and it goes like this. Tosfos believes that when the Gemara in number 1 said that if you damage via your body, you're chayiv even for an oinus, it only means the level of aveda when something gets lost. We said a shomer chinam, if you're watching an item and not getting paid, if the item was lost, you're potter. You're only chayiv for sheer negligence, not aveda, not if it was lost. Says Tosfos, when we say that Adam Hamadik, if you damage via your body, you're chayiv even if it's not your fault, it means to take it up one notch from pshia, one notch from negligence, which is aveda if the item got lost. If an item got lost, in other words, whatever level would fit the description of aveda, of an item being lost, that the shomer chinam would be potter, but the shomer socher, the guy that gets paid to watch, would be chayiv. To that degree, we say Adam Hamazik, if you damage via your body, you're chayiv as well. Whatever would fit the description of aveda if it's lost. But anything above that, like gneva, so even though we usually group gneva, loss, as stolen, or aveda together, that's when it comes to the shomrim that they're grouped together. A shomer chinam is potter for both. A shomer socher is chayiv for both. But the truth is, they're not exactly the same. If an item was stolen from you, it's much more of an oinus than if you stam lost it. So when it comes to Adam Hamazik, if you damage via your body, we differentiate, says Tosfos, that you're only chayiv. Adam Muad La'olam means anything which is one notch above pshia, above negligence, namely, if it fits the bill of aveda, the item being lost. But if it's more of an oinus, that it would fit the description of a gneva, of being stolen, you would be potter. That is the psak of Tosfos. That's number 1. The Rivah is the second opinion. The Rivah, we said the Rivah, the student of Rashi, he takes it one step higher. He says Adam Hamazik is just like a shomer socher. The Rivah is a grandson of Rashi. The Rivah, okay, soll sein. So the Rivam mitamem. Riva, okay. So, fine.
He said he learned by Rabbeinu Tam.
No, after he passed away, his students went to Rabbeinu Tam. Fine. The Riva says, Adam Hamadik, if you damage via your body, you're just like a Shomer Sacher, which means you're chayiv even for anything on the level of Gneva, which is more of an oinus than Aveda. That's the opinion of the Riva. But the Riva and Tosfos both agree to the general idea that if it's mamish and oinus, then you're potter. We don't say an Adam Hamazik is like a borrower, a shoyel who's chayiv on oinsin. That we don't say by Adam Hamazik. Comes the Ramban says we do. The Ramban, he says in a few places, the Ramban paskins that if Adam Muad la'olam means forever, forever means forever, and no exceptions, and even if it's an oinus gomer, you're still chayiv. Now, Tosfos proves his point from a number of rayas. I just got to tell over a few of them. Number one is there's a Yerushalmi, a famous Yerushalmi that all the Rishonim that discuss this topic are talking about. It's about a guy that goes to sleep. You know, it's let's try and make this practical. Ich weiß, you're by a Fabrengen, ich weiß, you had a Simchas Torah Purim, it's one of those heavy Fabrengens, you had a Bissel L'chaim, you end up falling asleep in shul. You go to the side of the room, you know, you want to be inconspicuous, but you go to sleep, but punked right next to you, there's 2 bottles of vodka. Now you just happen not to notice them. And during your sleep, you turn over, you smash the bottles. The Yerushalmi says you're chayiv. You're chayiv. Adam muad la'olam, you're chayiv. But, was? Exactly, yes. But what if you went to sleep and there was no mashka there? After you're sleeping, somebody puts a few bottles of mashka. The owner of the bottles, this is critical, the owner of the bottles put the mashka next to you. And then you turn over and you smash them. The Yerushalmi says you're potter. The shail is why. So, Bozeh Nechelku Tosfos and the Ramban. Tosfos says, you know why you're potter if you went to sleep and the mashka wasn't there? You did nothing wrong. You went to the corner, the coast was clear, there was nothing there. While you're sleeping, someone put mashka next to you? What do you want from you? You're an oinus, that's an oinus gomer. Says Tosfos, you see from here, that when it's beyond your control, you are potter even if your body destroyed. Says the Ramban, no. Adam muad forever. You're always chayiv, even if you're sleeping. You know why you're potter in the case of the mashka? It's because why did the guy put the mashka next to you while you were sleeping? It's his fault. It's his fault. When it's the Baal HaKelim, when it's the owner of the mashka bottle that put it there, and then you move around and you break it, he can't come with kindness to you. Why'd you break the mashka? You tell him why you put it next to me. You were negligent. So what would be a simple...
So is the reason because there is a source that you can go to be mechayev. In other words, because there's someone who is negligent to place something while someone is asleep, so you have a source like in law, you have a source where you can claim. But supposing it just got left.
Right. Or you could ask, very great, maybe we could ask it.
Yeah, he knows.
So maybe we could ask the following way. What if the person that put the mashka there was not the owner of the bottles, it was somebody else? So, according to Tosfos, what? So the only thing is that person. So you l'chayre would be potter. Though according to the Ramban, you would be chayiv. The Ramban says the only way the sleeper can get off the hook is if he can tell the owner of the jugs, why'd you put it next to me? But if it was somebody else, because if it was who said the other guy would be chayiv, for what reason?
I think the Rambam says about the owner. The
Bala Keli Pasha. Well, that's the Ramban. The Ramban.
But the Rambam, the way he writes Salva, he just says there's somebody put the Keli there, the other person is chayiv.
But why would the other person?
Because he was Pesheya, put it next to
the shaila is he's Pesheya, so what's he chayiv for? Let's say a third person put the thing next to him. Grom is potter ben azakin. Why? Not necessarily the guy that put it there is chayiv. You have because you have to point to which source of chayiv he put it there. 3 hours later, the sleeping guy turned over and broke the kalim. The guy that put it there is only a groma. Because the sleeper didn't have to break it. Not necessarily would that guy be chayiv. There's a big loophole when it comes to nezakin. There's something called garmei and something called grama. Grama is if you damage something very indirectly, you're held potter. Garmei is if you cause it more directly, you're chayiv. How do we differentiate between grom and garmei? This is one of the biggest sugyas in the laws of civil damages, and the Rishonim, there's lots of opinions, but many say the difference is did it happen right away or it took time? If it took a number of hours, then you'd only be groma, and then you would be potter. So then the guy that put the stuff there would actually be potter. Especially if the guy sleeping, it wasn't a certainty that he would break it. If it was a certainty, you could call it garmei. But if it wasn't a certainty, it just happened to happen, then very likely the guy that put the jugs there, the mashka there, would actually be potter. So according to the Ramban, then the guy sleeping l'chayra would be chayiv because of adam muad la'olam. Unless Rabbi Shachat's timing, maybe he'll still be off the hook because he could still point to the other guy who was negligent. That guy's also potter, so maybe we'll tell the owner, too bad. Okay, fine. Either way, if it was the owner of the jugs, of the mashka that put it there, the reason why the sleeper is potter is a debate between Tosfos and the Rambam. Tosfos says, it's not because the other guy was negligent. It's because you are not held responsible for circumstances beyond your control. So if it fell from heaven, the same thing, you would be potter, the same thing. But according to the Ramban, no, you're chayiv, unless you could blame somebody else. So therefore, if it fell from heaven, you're taka be chayiv. Okay. So far we have three opinions. We have Tosfos who says Adam Muad La'olam is to take it one level above negligence to a level of Aveda if it would be in the category of something being lost. The Rivot takes it a step up to even in the category of an item being stolen from you, which is more of an accident. It's just like a Shomer Sacher. And the Ramban says, no, you chayiv even for an Oinus Gomer. Okay, so now that we know that, let's see who we paskin like. So look at number... Okay, we'll look at number 3 and number 4. Number 3, in fact, jump to number 4 first. Number 4 is the tshuva of Rabbi Akiva Eger. This is a very sad story that has to do actually with the very first year that I gave to the community here, which was in somebody's house. It was Parsha Shlach a while back, and it was about why Moshe Dafka davened for Yeshua to be saved by the Meraglim and not for the other spies. And we went through a number of tshuvas and a long discussion. If you send somebody on a mission and they are hurt or killed, are you responsible? And there were many opinions on the matter. Well, this is a tshuva of Rabbi Akiva Eger that we didn't learn at the time, but it has to do. The story here is a very sad story. The exact circumstances aren't clear, but we can gather from the tshuva that there was a fellow that was... he had a wagon, and he had lots of stuff on the wagon. On the wagon he had a son, and he had a mashoris. It was late at night, and for some reason he started whipping the horses, and they went very, very fast. It seems like down a hill, and the whole wagon turned over, and unfortunately, the son and the mashoris perished. And this guy felt horrible. And the question is he responsible? How responsible is he? It came even a shaila, does he need to have self-imposed exile? We know if somebody kills b'shoigig, if somebody kills somebody else by mistake, then one goes into golus. And the shaila is today, is there something called self-imposed exile? The Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood, Rabbi Kotler, actually said that the reason he has to travel all around to collect money for the yeshiva is his chayiv golus, his chayiv and self-imposed exile. And not because of what happened to the Lubavitcher Bochum in Shanghai, but for a different reason. He said that during shir, sometimes I belittle Bochum if they ask a narish, a foolish shaila, and their face can turn red. And if you embarrass someone publicly, it's like murder. And therefore, since I'm, this is what he said about himself. He said, since in some level there's an accidental mistaken murder, therefore I have to do all this self-imposed exile of traveling around to collect money for the yeshiva.
He couldn't stop embarrassing the Bacher.
Right.
Probably for a ki'ilu, you're not machuyev.
Right, ki'ilu. They always say all the ki'ilus rectify each other. If you're ki'ilu over avodah zarah, then you could be ki'ilu you brought a carbon. You know, all the ki'ilus can rectify each other. But So Rabbi Akiva Eiger says like this in number 4. Loi chein benidin didan. In this story here, Ishahu goyrem gadol. The father Nebuch was a major goyrem in the story of his kid, because why did he send the horses flying in the middle of the night? It was dark. Now the kid was sleeping. Taki, if the kid and the Meshoris, if they had been up, they would have survived. But they were sleeping and they didn't gain consciousness till it was too late. But the driver, the father, is mamish agoyim. But after it could be the iliin galus haypat. Says Akiva Eiger, you know why you shouldn't go to self-imposed exile? It could be this is too severe. Gam came din shul of lamezit. You only go to exile for mistaken murder if it was shoygig. Shoygig means it's not an onus, it wasn't an accident, but it also wasn't sheer negligence. It's somewhere in the middle. This case, says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, could be the father shouldn't go to Golus because it was too severe. Laharitz hasusim, to get the horses going fast, to unim b'masa, they were loaded with merchandise or belayla at night. Va'adam muad la'olam, and you're a muad forever. What we're learning about. Bedavar shekarav l'pshia. Dahainu ke'ein aveda. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says we paskin like Tosfos. Out of the 3 opinions, Tosfos, the Riva, and the Ramban, we go like Tosfos. Adam muad la'olam, not just for pshia, for negligence, but for a step above, but only for something which is close to pshia, ke'ein aveda. If it's in the category of something being lost, like Tosfos and Baba Basra. And Kriya continues, he says, I feel that if there was other people's merchandise, and through the wagon falling they were lost, I would taina shomer chinam, karav hador be'ena, you'd have to pay, midin mazik, because you're a damager. Because, now this is a bit of a chiddush. Here is saying that this story wasn't just Aved, it was Pshia Mamish. Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Because you have to be careful and worried if you're going to take if the agol is going fast, it might turn over. Fine. Akoponim, that's what Rabbi Akiva Eiger. And Rabbi Akiva Eiger, then he lists out a whole tikkun shuvah for this father. It's a very serious thing. Akoponim, Rabbi Akiva Eiger paskins like Tosfos. What?
Who was hitting the horse?
The father of the son and the Meshoris that passed away. And therefore he was held responsible. Akoponim, Rabbi Akiva Eiger paskins like Tosfos. Look at number 3. Number 3 we have the Nesivos, the great Nesivos HaMishpat, the same time as Rabbi Akiva Eiger. The 2 of them were close. In fact, the Nesivos HaMishpat, a very hard life. Nebuch, he was divorced 3 times. One of the times after the divorce, the people in his shul were like a rav that divorces the wife. It's a bit of a scandal. It was a shanda. They sent a letter to Rabbi Akiva Eiger asking him, should we keep the Nesivos? Rabbi Yankov Loiberbom was his name. Should we keep him as rav after a scandalous story? Rabbi Akiva Eiger wrote back, I was the guy that told him to divorce his wife. So... anyhow, the 2 of them were close. So number 3, we have the halach in the Shulchan Aruch and then a comment of the Nesivos. Says the Shulchan Aruch, if Reuven sells something to Shimon which has a mum, he sells him a couch, and the couch official, let's say, opens up to become a recliner, and this one doesn't, it's broken. He doesn't tell him about it. But the lekeach takes the couch home. He doesn't check to see if the recliner is working, but he decides to put some paint to color the couch or something. And he makes a mum acher, before he knows the mum harishon, the first thing. And then he finds out that it doesn't open up, so he wants to give it back. And the seller's like, I can't take it back, you colored it. But the other guy's like, listen, it's still a mekach toys. You sold me a faulty couch. So what do we do over here? So says the Shulchan Aruch, it's pretty simple. If what Shimon did was normal, like if what he did, I don't know, let's say he did something which was mamish, everyone that has a couch does. Potter, Shimon's completely potter. He can give back the couch and get his full money back. But ve'im shin, if he did something strange, like he colored it, va'asa mum acher koidim shivadulei amum, and before he realized that the recliner doesn't work, he colored it, then he can still give back the couch, because it's a mekach tos. But he has to pay the guy for the mum that he did, that he colored it. Machzik hamekach lebailov, he can give back the couch, he'll get his money back. But we're going to minus the amount of money that but Shimon has to pay for whatever damage he did. Correct in the Nesivos HaMishpat, why? Why does Shimon have to pay for the fact that he colored it? L'chayre, he was an anus. He thought the couch was good. He thought the recliner worked. He thought the couch was his. When he damaged it, he wasn't having any intention to damage. He thought it was his own. He had kavana l'shem shemayim. He's an onus, isn't he? Why is he chayav for the damages? So it says in the Nesivos, v'luchayr, it's similar to Allah and Siman Shin Mem Aleph, we're number 3, in the words of the Nesivos, in the Rashi words. There's Allah, Yorshim Sheniach Lohen Avi and Parashulah. You have a group of orphans that their father left them a cow. The father passes away. In his property is a beautiful cow. It happens to be this cow was borrowed for a year. The orphans don't know that. They think it's the father's cow, and they look at it like, we want to have a good barbecue tonight. V'tzvachua, and they shecht it. V'achlu, and they eat it. Anyhow, a few months later, the owner comes, where's my cow? What cow? What cow? The kids find out, the children find out it wasn't their father's cow. So, what they pay is like this. They don't pay the full worth of the cow. What they ate, let's say the cow's worth, it doesn't matter what the cow's worth, but let's say they had $1,000 worth of meat. They paid 2/3, $667 worth. Why? Mishum hano, they do it for their benefit. Meaning like this, they're potter for the damage, but they have to pay for their benefit. There's a halach in Choshen Mishpat called, you have to pay for your hano. If you had benefit on someone else's expense, you have to pay for the benefit. But how do we judge the benefit? 2/3 of the market price. Because the orphans could say, had we known we would have to pay the whole 1,000, we wouldn't have done it. But we can tell them, we are certain if it was 33% off, you would have done it. Everyone chops a bargain. And therefore, that's considered hana, and you have to pay for that. So, frek the nesivos have a kasha. Why don't they pay for the full animal? Because they're anusim, they thought it was their father's. So this case too, the buyer thought the couch was his. He didn't realize that there was a mekach toss. He didn't know that the recliner wasn't working. So frek the nesivos, mashma de'im hizika behema. Imagine the orphan killed the borrowed cow, but they didn't make a barbecue. They had no benefit. They stam killed it. They wouldn't pay anything. Kivan shenensu, because for the damage they bought, because they're einsim, because they thought it was theirs. So too here, why is this case in about the couch different? So the Efshel Lechalach says the Nesivos, you know what the difference is? Taisvis. Adam Muad La'olam includes any case similar to Aveda, meaning any case which bears some negligence. The Efshel Lechalach says, and you know what the difference is? The bemazik ba'oinus, if you damage ba'oinus, it's not so simple. Yesh chiluk, there's a difference. Bein oinus the dami la'oinus geneva. If it's a big oinus, it's like a theft that you're potter. But bein oinus the dami la'oinus daf, if it's like being lost, you're chayiv, like Tosfos says in Baba Kama Daf Chav Zayin. Right? He and Rabbi Akiva Eiger are both quoting Tosfos. They're quoting different Tosfos, and I mentioned it's mentioned 5 times in Shas. But Akaparm says in the Sivs, V'im Ken Yishlema, this is the difference. By the children and the father, why in the world should they suspect that this cow was something their father borrowed? There's no reason for them to suspect that at all. They never heard anything. If kids yarshin, the first thing they have to assume is that it's not their father's property? No. Therefore, they're anusim taka. But by the couch, maybe you should first check the couch to see if everything is good before you start painting it. And therefore, it's more negligent. Why don't you check to make sure the couch is good before you start using it for yourself? It's a smaller onus on your chayiv. Fine. So we see that both the Nesivos, both Rabbi Akiva Eiger, Paskin like Tosfos. Number 5, we come to the Rambam, and this is really where things get a little bit tricky. Look at number 5, the Rambam. It's in Hilchos Chayvul Mazik. Says the Rambam, Hamazik Mamen Chaveiroi. If you damage your friend's money, you're chayiv l'shalom nezek shom, full damage. Whether you're a shoygig, whether you're an oinus, hadehu kamezid. Even if you're an oinus, it's like you're deliberate. I will tell you, those words of the Rambam are strange. Why does the Rambam say, even if you're an oinus, it's like you're deliberate? The reason you're chayiv is not because it's like you're deliberate. It's because you don't have to be deliberate. Why does the Rambam add those 3 words? But either way, that's just some homework, food for thought. Ketzad, but the Rambam says, I'll give you an example. Nafal min agag, if you fell from a roof, v'shaver es hakem, you broke kalim, or sheniskal kushu mahalach, if while you're walking you tripped. The Rishonim discuss a difference though, if while you're walking and you tripped, did you trip over your own feet, or you tripped over an item? There's a big difference, but either way, says the Rambam, v'nafal al klif, if you fell on a kli v'shaver and you broke it, you chayiv nezek shalom. How do I know? Now he doesn't quote the pasuk in number 1 that Chizkiah quoted. He quotes a different pasuk. Umake behemi shalmena. If you hit someone's animal, you got to pay, no matter what. Lo chilek hakasav, whether you shogig, whether mezik. Continues the Rambam. Whether you kill someone's animal, or you break his kalim, or you tear his clothes, or you ruin his field, hakol dinechad, it's all the same din. If you damaged it yourself, you're chayiv, even if it's an accident. Look at number 6. Number 6, right underneath, is from the Magid Mishnah. The Magid Mishnah, who's one of the main commentators on the Rambam, he was a Rishon, a student of the Rashba. By the way, Reb Chaim Vital was a Gilgul of the Magid Mishnah. He says it about himself. The Magid Mishnah's last name was Vidal. So it could be he was Ben Achar Ben, a couple hundred years later. But Chaim Vital says, when I was the Magid Mishnah, I used to laugh at those that koch sich too much in Kabbalah. So I had to come down and spend the whole life learning Kabbalah. Anyhow, the Magid Mishnah says in number 6, the Rambam's comment is a Mishnah in Ketzad Horegel, that's in Baba Kama. Ukavar Kosafti Perik Rishon, says the Magid Mishnah, I already wrote, the Oinus Gomer, if it's mamish an accident, Shekosvuzal, that the rabbi's right that it's potter, the Harav Loi Chilik, but the Rambam doesn't differentiate. It sounds from the Magid Mishnah that the Rambam holds like the Ramban and not like Tosfos, that you're always chayiv even if it's a complete onus. Look at number 7, right underneath. This is a Rambam in the same parak as number 5, but 2 halachas later. Hoya oile besulam, you're ascending a ladder. V'nishmeta shleva mitachtov, and the rung fell out of the ladder. The nafla, the rung fell down. V'zikin, it destroyed, damaged somebody or someone's property. So it's you because it's your energy, it's your koyach. Im loy hoysa muhudekes v'chazaka, if the ladder or the rung was not properly attached, then you're negligent, you're chayiv. But v'im hoysa chazaka muhudekes, but if the ladder was good, v'nishmata, somehow the rung slipped out, oishe tliya, or worms had eaten into it, and there was no way for you to know that it was going to fall down. Harizeh potter, your potter. Shezumako b'deshman. This is from heaven. V'chein kol kiyotz, anything similar. So the Rambam here clearly says, if a circumstance is beyond your control, you're potter. So is that a contradiction in the Rambam? Look at number 8. Number 8 is again the Magid Mishnah on this halacha. And the Magid Mishnah says the strangest thing. Hatam sheyeh potter l'das harav. You know why the Rambam says you're potter by the ladder? Mipnei shehein oinsin gemurin. It's a complete oinus. Ve'ein ruach she'ein mitzuya oinus gomer kolkach. We know from number 2, if it was a crazy wind came and knocked you off the roof, Rabbah said you're chayiv, at least for nezik, right? And no one debates that. It's a psak of Rabbah. Says the Magid Mishnah, yeah. A ruach she'ein mitzuya is not a complete oinus. But the case of the ladder is a complete oinus. So what's the Magid Mishnah saying? Who does the Rambam hold like? Like Tosfos. So the Magid Mishnah, major contradiction, mamish in the same parak. In the first halach, he says the Rambam holds like the Ramban, that whether you're oinus gomer, whether it's not, it makes no difference. Adam muad le oilam. And over here by the ladder, the Magid Mishnah, as if he forgot what he just said, he says, yeah, this is an oinus gomer. And the Rambam buys into that. So look at number 9, is the Kesef Mishnah. Rabbi Yosef Kaira wrote a commentary in the Kesef Mishnah, and he points out what's going on. The Magid Mishnah, God forbid, one halacha to the next. How could he forget? Says the Kesef Mishnah, Kosav Harav Magid. The Magid writes in the first halacha that the Rambam loy chiluk, that doesn't differentiate if it's an oinus gomer or not. V'yesh l'tmoya, it's mamish a wonder on a Rav HaMagid. Shahari medina ya'oyle b'sulam, in the case of the ladder, v'nishmeta shleva, and the rung slipped out mitachtov, shekosav rabbeinu b'samuch, 2 halachas later the Rambam brings it, mashme behedya, that shehu potter, but the Rambam clearly seems to buy into Tosfos' opinion, if it's a real oinus your potter, and the chein kosav shama, Rav HaMagid atzmai, the Magid says it also, l'das rabbeinu. What's going on? So Yosef Kaira says he Pasha can't understand what's the Magid Mishnah saying. Now, why is Rabbi Yosef Kaira asking on the Rambam? No, on the Rambam Alein is nishver, because if you look at the Rambam in number 5, yeah, the Rambam doesn't differentiate, but he does say lo chilik hakosav ben shoygig lemezid. The Rambam didn't clearly say even an oinus gomer. Maybe the Rambam was relying that when we learn the case of the ladder, we'll realize oinus gomer is potter. So on the Rambam itself, it's not a contradiction.
Maybe that's necessary to basic.
Right, and that could be why he dafka says shoygig here and not oinus in the fourth line. He leaves out oinus, right. But on the Magid Mishnah, it's mamish shver. It's difficult. The Magid Mishnah says in number 6, the Magid Mishnah says about the Rambam in number 5 that the Rambam is not mechalek. Mashma that the Rambam disagrees with Taisus, you're always chayiv. And then the Magid Mishnah says 2 halachas later, no, the Rambam holds, so you're actually potter. So how in the world does this make any sense? So there are 2 ways to go about this. One of them is the Radvaz, and one of them is the Even Ha'ozel. The Radvaz, Reb David ben Zimra, was a Rav in Mitzrayim in the 1500s. He was a Rebbe of the Arizal. The Arizal studied Nigla underneath him. And we mentioned him 2 weeks ago when we discussed about how the Rambam lived in Mitzrayim. We spoke about the Radvaz as well. He was 40 years a Rav in Cairo. And then he went to Tzfas. And when it came to the Smicha controversy, the Radvaz was against. He was together with the Ralbach in Yerushalayim. The Radvaz comes to Tzfas. He sees they're all busy giving the real Smicha. But he was quiet. Once he came to Tzfas, he bit his lip. He didn't say nothing. Anyhow, the Radvaz says like this. There's numerous levels of Einsim. In other words, like this. There's a classic case, Reuven sees Shimon, he can't stand him, he punches him in the face. He wanted to damage him, and he damaged him. It's like there were 2 schnorres, Yankel and Beryl, and Beryl's new to town, and Beryl tells Yankel, no, where are the good houses to knock on? So Yankel says, everywhere, but don't go to Chaim's house, don't go to Reb Chaim's house. Beryl's like, I'm going to Reb Chaim's house. He goes to Reb Chaim's house, Yankel's waiting outside. A minute later, Beryl runs out of the house. He says, Yankel, how could you send me here? Yankel says, I didn't, but what happened? He said, what do you mean? Reb Chaim wanted to throw me out. How do you know he wanted to throw me out? If he didn't want to, why did he do it? So it has to do a lot with Eidim Zoyimim. Anyhow, but I'll call upon him. There's one case where somebody damages and they wanted to damage, and then you're chayiv all 5, boishas as well. You have a step up when you didn't want to hurt someone, but you were negligence, and then you're chayiv, not for boishas, embarrassment, but for the other 4 things, for pain and doctor bills and damage. Then you have a step up when there isn't negligence. What we start to call an oinus. But says the Radvaz, there are 3 levels. There's an oinus she'einoi gomer, an incomplete oinus. There's an oinus gomer, a complete oinus. And then there's an oinus godul ma'oid, a whopping oinus. And says the Radvaz like this. If it's an incomplete oinus, everyone agrees that Adam Muad la'olam. The Mishnah said it, right? If you're only chayiv for pshia, the Mishnah can't say you're always muad. Then you are just like if your property damages. We know that if you damage with your body, it's a step up pshia. So everyone agrees if it's the lowest level of oinus, you're chayiv. Oinus she'eina gomer, incomplete. If it's an oinus gomer, complete oinus, then we have the debate. Tosfos says you're potter, the Ramban says you're chayiv. But then you have an oinus godul ma'oid, a whopping oinus. Like the Rambam terms, this came from heaven. Then even the Ramban would agree that you are potter. For example, even when it comes to ruach she'eino mitzuya, to winds which are unexpected, there's 3 dargis. If you're on top of a roof, if a 50-mile-per-hour wind came, it's an unexpected wind, but everyone holds your chayiv. Rabbah said in number 2, you're chayiv to pay for damage. Even Tosfos agrees, because that's kod of l'pshia.
Could have happened.
What if it's a 150-mile-per-hour wind, 150-mile-per-hour wind? Then that might be called an oinus gomer. I mean, there was like so Tosfos would say you're potter, Rambam would say you're chayiv. But then you have a wind like Eliyahu Hanavi, that
Or earthquake in a place
right.
with no...
Some Rishonim hold that when the Ralbag says that when Eliyahu Hanavi went up, a huge wind just took him to the top of some faraway mountain. If you get stuck in a tornado and it takes you 10 miles and that's an oinus gadol moed, even the Ramban would agree you're potter. So says the Radvaz, now the Magid Mishnah and the Rambam all make sense. The Rambam holds like the Ramban. Taka, you're chayiv for an oinus gomer. but not for an Oinus Godel Ma'od. And therefore the Maggid Mishnah never contradicted himself. In number 6, the Maggid Mishnah is saying that the Rambam is not mechalek by an Oinus Gomer. The Rambam doesn't agree with Tosfos, who says Oinus Gomer is potter. The Rambam holds like the Ramban. Oinus Gomer is chayiv. But if it's mamish and Oinus Godel Ma'od, then the Rambam and the Ramban also hold you potter. Now, exactly. So how in the world do you divide between an incomplete Oinus, a complete Oinus? Exactly, that's it.
Lawyers gotta.
There has to be precedent.
Precedence comes from the first case that was decided. That's what case law
You
is.
start getting 145 miles.
Yeah, then you have an expert. You bring your expert, he brings his expert. It never happened here before. The last time Mount Vesuvius erupted was 774 BCE. You built the whole town right next to it. What were you thinking? The whole Naples Bay is built on it. This is what experts do.
There's no way to base on it. In other words, you can't.
Experts. That's what
Everybody
they
has to be an expert in
It
winds.
never happens. is it?
Yeah, and of course there's experts in
But
winds.
everybody has to be an expert in winds. When you go up on the thing, you already have to you have to take a class in winds. It's just not practical.
What you should have known. What?
You see, when he said 150 mile per hour wind, I was like, that's a category 4 hurricane.
But in Miami, you should know. It happens. If it's in the month of April and they tell you...
When
Well, on the other end-
winds, you're calling in FEMA, so that's a.
No. So that's talking Oinus Gomer. It's a complete Oinus. But because it happens here and there, listen, you're right. It's taka hard. It's taka hard. It's taka hard. On the other hand,
splitting hairs.
yeah.
That's what
Okay,
the Rambam's
okay. But
trying
listen.
to
Hold on, wait. Even before we got to the Radvaz, we already saw that according to Tosfos, you're only chayiv for an Oinus, which is like Aveda when you lose something, not for Gneva. How do you divide between? By Shomer, we never divide. A Shomer Chinam is potter for both. Yeah, but when you're extrapolating to other cases and you're trying to figure out which one do they match, it's also difficult. Yeah, that's why you.
Geneva, somebody broke into your house and stole. It's a different thing.
Right. No, but we're extrapolating like, in other words, ruach she'ena mitzuya. We're saying an uncommon wind. Tosfos says is dafka like aveda, and that's why Tosfos agrees you're chayiv. It's not yet like Gneva. Now, how does he know that? Why is this 80 mile per hour wind is like it lost? The wind maybe is like the Ganev. It came from outside.
The
And
actual Aveda and Geneva to me makes sense.
right.
Actually,
No.
that
That, you're right. That I agree with you. But when you extrapolate that to try and match other, it's also hard. That's why, that's why being a dayan, besides for knowing the halachas, your dayan really has to properly understand the mitzias. You really have to be an expert in the facts.
The preliminary from the culture is just no, the halacha is the opposite.
So now hold on. So this is what the Radvaz says. So Taka, there's a story with the Barditchev and the Alter Rebbe, but once discussing a halachic topic, and the Alter Rebbe said the halacha is ABC, and the Barditchev said, but the Vilna Gaon said that, so it must be the halacha is different.
The opposite.
Taka said that, but I don't think the Alter Rebbe changed.
But the Alter Rebbe answered to that.
Yeah, what was his answer?
His answer was, when it comes to halacha, even it could be the halacha like
The Vilna Gaon. The halacha could be like him.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay. So then we come to the Evan Ha'azel. So who is the Evan Ha'azel? Isser Zalman Meltzer. He's in the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, passes away in 1954. He was in the Litvische world, he was known as a huge Gaon, a huge Talmud Chacham. When he was a kid, a boy, he went to the famous yeshiva of Volozhin. Reb Chaim Brisker was there, and Reb Chaim Brisker loved him. Reb Chaim Brisker said that when however he referred to Isser Zalman, he said, when he's by the shir, he opens up my mind. He opens up my mind. And the Evan Ha'azel wrote a beautiful letter to the Rebbe when the Rebbe became a Rebbe. He was in Yerushalayim, then he passes away in 1954. The Rebbe became Rebbe a few years before that. He wrote a beautiful letter and he gives him a bracha. You should live long on your mamlachta, on the kisei harabonis, the chair of rabbonis of Chabad, and the zchus of your fathers should support you. A beautiful letter that he wrote. It happens to be in his yeshiva in Yerushalayim. There was some bochrim, it looks like, wanted to institute a Tanya shir. This was big in the olden days. Today it's not so common. In Eretz Yisrael it happens. In America I don't know how often it happens. But decades ago, the Lubavitcher bochrim had a big desire to infiltrate the big Litvische fortresses, coming with their Tanyas and with their Chassidus. And when I was in Eretz Yisrael, I was in Torah Semes Yerushalayim, we also did it. And we also got thrown out. It's all part of the fun. And we just come in to discuss Gemara. Well, you're so afraid of us. You're afraid of us, It's like when the Vilna Gaon, when the Alter Rebbe came with Mendel Horadoker to visit the Vilna Gaon, the Vilna Gaon didn't grant them an audience. J.B. Soloveitchik.
No, the Alter Rebbe said he's sorry that he didn't bring the door.
Oh, yeah? So J.B. Soloveitchik says that he's an Einikol of Chaim Volozhiner. He says the tradition in their family is that the Vilna Gaon looked through Chveis the Kiyol, or looked through and he saw the two of them, and he said, the two of them, I knew that if they would come in and speak to me, I would walk out holding their hands and to agree to spread Chassidus. What?
I heard that his mother said it.
His mother told him to run out the window. His mother told him to jump out the window, right, yeah. Anyhow, but this is not art. It's after the Brisker tradition that the Vilna Gaon said that if I would have gone out with them, I know I would have agreed with them. And I didn't want to, and therefore he jumped out the back. Anyhow, so in Issa Zalman Meltzer's yeshiva, it was after he had passed away, there was some bochrim who wanted to bring in some Tanyas and learn Chassidus. And the Anhola didn't let. So the Rebbe got wind of the story, and the Rebbe wrote, we have a letter, it's in English Kodesh, the Rebbe says that whoever isn't allowing the Tanya, it can't be, it's under the influence of Issa Zalman Meltzer. Because he knew the Rebbe Rashab, he knew the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he was in Rostov by the Rebbe Rashab, he would never have been against learning Tanya. So the Rebbe had a very favorable, he was the father-in-law of Aaron Kotler, Issa Zalman Meltzer. But, Rav Shach was also part of that family as well. So it's talking mamish the family of the heaviest misnagdim. But his father is Issa Zalman Meltzer. The Rebbe said clearly, if there's an issue of learning Chassidus in the yeshiva, it's not from Issa Zalman. And there's another thing just to point out, that Issa Zalman Meltzer, when he was in Yerushalayim, he used to learn Kabbalah with somebody. Now, the Rebbe makes mention of this because Shloime Yosef Zevin, the guy that put together Encyclopedia Talmudis, he wrote a sefer called Ishim V'Shittis, going through a number. Shloime Yosef Zevin, Rabbi Zevin, geschrieben a sefer Ishim V'Shittis, going through the biggest scholars of the last 100 years and describing their method of learning. And he has a thing about the Evan Ha'azel, Issa Zalman Meltzer. And the Rebbe writes to Rabbi Zevin that I've heard shmuas, I heard rumors that Issa Zalman used to learn Kabbalah, Pnimiyas HaTorah. You should have written it, you should have stuck it into your say, you should have made mention of it. And the Rebbe says, I know that you're not discussing the guy, it's not a biography, you're discussing the guy's shit of learning, so maybe this is not relevant. The Rebbe says, no, it's relevant. And the Rebbe says, I'll prove it to you. What's the Rebbe's proof? Because Rabbi Hillel Paritcher was once asked, why is he so careful in mitzvahs? He's so particular to make sure every mitzvah is behidr and everything and bediuk. And Rabbi Hillel said, I do it so maybe my mind will open up and an idea of Chassidus will be understood. I'll be able to get an idea of Chassidus. Which means that Pnimiyas HaTorah is not just a side part of a person's life. It can be the driving force of everything. So you shouldn't have left it out. So the Rebbe had a very favorable look towards Rabbi Issa Zalman Meltzer. Anyhow, Rabbi Issa Zalman Meltzer Tainas, Pshat in the Rambam is, it's the following. You punch somebody with your arm. What's that called? It's called Adam Ba'adam, one man to another man. You throw an arrow, you throw a brick at somebody, it's your koyach. But we usually say, koyach kagufa, your strength is just like you. Your strength is just like you. If your money damages, then it's your money. There's different ramifications. You're only chayiv. There's negligence. You're never chayiv on the 5 things, only on damage, etc. But an arrow is mamash you. It's mamash you. It's your energy. Says Reb Isser Zalman, your strength is like you, but not 100%, 95%. There's one difference between the two. You know what the difference is? If it's an oinus gomer. If it's a complete oinus. The Rambam holds, if it's a complete oinus and it was your actual body that destroyed somebody or their property, then there's no loophole, there's no leniency. But if it was your koyach, if it was your strength, then your potter if it was an oinus gomer. We find a similar thing by your animal. If an animal's walking down the street, right? If it tramples upon something, it's called regel. Your animal damage to its foot. If it flicks up rocks, it's called sroirus. If it flicks up rocks, so this pebble was flicked up by the animal, and it damaged somebody's property or the person. It's your animal's koyach. So koyach kegufa is just like your animal. Yet we have a tradition from halacha l'Moshe Sinai. If somebody or someone's property was damaged through the energy of your animal, you only pay half. Chatzi nezek tzroiris, this is called tzroiris. If it's pebbles that were kicked up and flicked up by your animal, although you're chayiv, because your animal's strength is like your animal, but not all the way. You only chayiv half. You only chayiv half. Yeah. So by tzroiris, you only chayiv half. You only chayiv half. I koiche kegufay. Yeah, in general, but it doesn't mean it's 100% the same thing. So too over here says that Evan Oz. That's the pshat in the Rambam. When the Rambam spoke about the person falling off the ladder, he doesn't say the person fell off the ladder. What does he say? The wrong fell down. The wrong fell down, not the person himself. The wrong. Why doesn't the Rambam say the person fell down? Because if it was the person falling down, you're taka chayiv. There's no excuse. If it was your strength, if it's only something which is coming from your koyach, then we apply the rule, oinus gomer is potter. And that's why the Magid Mishnah is not a contradiction. On the one hand, the Rambam disagrees with Tais. He holds like the Ramban. I don't care if it's a complete oinus or not. When is that? If it was your body. If it was your body. Look at the examples the Rambam gave in number 5.
There's an opposite. In other words, even if there's a huge wind, a hurricane or whatever it is, you'd still be chayiv.
Because it's your body. Exactly. Yeah. Look at the examples in number 5. In number 5, the Rambam says, if you fell off a roof, or if you tripped and you fell on a kli, and in number 5 in the second halacha, these are all things that you did with your body or your hand. Says the Magid Mishnah, legabe such cases, the Rambam agrees to Ramban, no matter what you're chayiv. But the case of the Sulam wasn't you, it was the Shleva, it was the wrong. And over there, the Ramban will hold, the Rambam, maybe the Ramban as well, but the Rambam will hold that if it's an incomplete, that if it's a complete oinus, you'll be off the hook, because it wasn't you at the end of the day, it was only your energy. Now, I will just tell you, if you look at number 10, we'll just finish with this. Number 10 is Rabbi Yosef Kaira in his Shulchan Aruch, and the glosses of the Ramah. It's in Siman Shin Ayin Ches, in Choshen Mishpat. Rabbi Yosef Kaira says like this: Asur lahazik moment, you can't damage somebody's money. Ve'im hiziku, if you did, afal pisha ein, and then even though you had no enjoyment, you're chayav, you got to pay full payment, whether you're shoygig, whether you're an anus. And then in the brackets you have the Ramah's glosses. V'dafka she'einay anus gomer. Dafka if you're not a complete anus. Kate Sad says back to Rabbi Yosef Kaira, Naf, if you fell from the gag, you broke the kli, or you tripped while you're walking, you fell in the kli. The same case as the Rambam, you're chayiv. Halacha Beis says Rabbi Yosef Kaira, if Naf, you fell from the roof, v'hizik, you're chayiv l'shalom, nezek shalom. Whether you fell beruach mitzuya, a regular wind, whether you fell with an irregular wind. And the Ramah says as well there, you know why? Because it's not an oinus gomer. If it was an oinus gomer, you would be potter. So the Ramah twice says clearly that he's going in the worldview of Tosfos. An oinus gomer is potter. You're only chayav for a small oinus. But what does Rabbi Yosef Kaira himself hold? He's quoting the words of the Rambam. He's quoting the words of the Rambam. If you go like the so whatever pshat you're going to give in the Rambam, maybe you can give in the words of Rabbi Yosef Kaira. If you learn like the Radvaz, what was the Radvaz's pshat? That the Rambam holds like the Ramban, that an oinus gomer you're chayiv, but if it's an oinus godul ma'oid, mamish, you got stuck in a tornado, then you're potter. But then that would mean that Rabbi Yosef Kaira is being machmir like the Ramban. If you learn like the Evan Ha'ozel, weiter, the Rambam is pretty, and Rabbi Yosef Karo would be pretty extreme, that you're chayiv even for an oinus gomer. If it happens to be your strength, like the case of the rung by the ladder, you'd be off the hook. But the truth is, if the Evan HaAzel doesn't buy into that case, only the Radvaz, you would be chayiv. You'd be chayiv exactly by the exactly.
Lashon is enough. It's talking about the Ram, not to the person.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why the Rambam holds your potter, according to Evan HaAzel Dafka there. Exactly. That's why the Rambam Dafka said that. But if you remember, number nine was Rabbi Yosef Karo in his commentary, the Kesef Mishnah. In number 9, what can we glean from how he understood the Rambam? In number 9, he attacked the Maggid Mishnah and says, how could the Maggid Mishnah say that the Rambam holds like the Ramban? The Rambam clearly differentiates between a complete oinus and non-complete. In number 9, what do you smell from the Kesef Mishnah's words? That he learned that the Rambam holds like Tosfos. And the case of the ladder is just an example for any oinus gomer. So the truth is, Rabbi Yosef Karo himself, if what he says in Shulchan Aruch is based on how he himself understood the Rambam in his commentary of the Kesef Mishnah, then Fakert is actually passing like Tosfos, which means the Ramah is not arguing on the Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah is just explaining, is just giving a commentary. So in other words, if you dafka remember what Rabbi Yosef Karo said in his Kesef Mishnah, then when you see the words he writes in Shulchan Aruch, he's actually not disagreeing with the Ramah. He also holds that you're potter if it's a complete oinus. So that's quite interesting. But Lamaisa, we saw by the Nesivos, by the Kiva Eger, not only do they paskin like Tosfos, but Dafka, the more lenient version of Tosfos, not the Riva, but Tosfos himself, who says you're only chai for anything like an Aveda, nothing beyond that. Okay, this is a little bit of a taste of that's a taxi driver. So there was so here's the thing. When a woman gives birth in a taxi, what type of onus would you call that? You said it's hard to. So let's. It might depend what number baby was this. Does she? What's her past experience? Let's say the last couple of times it was an 8-hour labor, and she's only in labor 2 hours. And this is mamish unexpected. Her precedent is not to have a baby so early. What?
I would say it's pretty.
Or foreseeable, at least, yeah.
If she's in labor, that's a lot. She's in labor.
Yeah, but let's say the last couple of kids took her 8 hours. Now she's 1 hour into it. Is it negligence?
Yeah, but what she's
Is it close? She should call an ambulance. Call Atzala. Don't call a private taxi.
So you could
that
say,
was the
why
time.
did the private
The
taxi
time was
take
that the taxi. Why do you take it? The taxi was called to her. Once he's there, every minute he's losing money. No, the taxi driver tined it. She should call an ambulance, right? She tined it. I know this was mamish.
But the taxi driver took her because he wanted his money?
No.
Then he should be responsible.
Once he's there, he's supposed to leave.
No, that's what I was
so
thinking.
here's the shiloh.
But if that wasn't his claim, then it was an emergency. How am I supposed to walk away from the lady?
Yeah.
I hope.
So I'll tell you. So Reb Asher Weiss, the big Rav in Eretz Yisrael today.
Yeah, that's.
So this came to
How
Asher
can we turn
Weiss's
her down?
bezdin. Asher Weiss tined. He said his policy is if your labor has began, you call an ambulance. If you call a private thing, it's at your own risk. So the things like this. There were some that wanted to tine that this would be a case of Geneva, similar to Geneva. And therefore, according to Taisus itself, you're potter. According to the Riva and the Ramban, you're chayiv. But here's the thing. When you rent a taxi, you know what you are? You're a soicher. There's something called a soicher if you rent. A soicher we hold is chayiv like a shomer socher. You're chayiv on Geneva and Aveda. If you rent somebody's property, you're not like a borrower, you're chayiv even for an onus. But you're like a shomer socher, someone who gets paid to watch. You're chayiv on anything which is similar to Aveda being lost or Geneva being stolen. So even if this is like Geneva, she won't be chayiv maybe as Adam Hamazik, because Tosfos holds you're not chayiv in a level of Geneva, but as soicher you're chayiv. The shaila is though, when you rent a taxi, are you really renting the taxi? Or are you only hiring the services? When you get into
This is even more so because you can't turn her down. It's a woman that's in
That's
distress.
the other part.
So you can't even say that it's like a Seicher B'chal because he doesn't have a choice at that point.
the shaila is she like a soicher to be machmer on her? Is she renting? If she's considered renting the taxi, then she's chayiv on anything which is the level of Geneva. Even the Tosfos himself holds that as far as Adam Mud La'olam, we wouldn't take it so far. But as far as soicher, you would. So Usher
There
wise
would be an
paskins,
argument that he accepted the risk, other than he can't turn her down.
He has no choice.
Yeah.
He showed up, he had no choice.
But you going to turn down a pregnant woman in labor?
But does he have a right to say you have to call an ambulance instead? I can't.
Right, that's what we're saying. That
So
He can't.
Practically, he has no capability of doing it.
Now, was she negligent in any way? If she always takes 8 hours till birth, in her mind she was certain, like not even a chance.
In labor,
99%. You're saying can never be certain.
But what
Once
is it,
someone's
is
in
it
labor.
a subjective discussion? Does her mind matter?
Yeah,
does?
negligence. Yeah, negligence. That's why he said about you have to study the winds. In your mind, that's how we know if you're negligent. If you, in your mind, you were sure what you're doing is right.
What if a reasonable person, somebody, your mind, but somebody else, 9 out of 10
No,
people
so
wouldn't have decided that way.
The fact that you were missing common sense itself is negligence. You know, if everyone else would realize and you didn't, that itself might be negligence.
I think this is hard to say that every pregnancy, every birth is min hashamayim. In other
Min
words,
hashamayim.